Welcome back to Book Club. This is the second edition of The Things You Can See Only When You Slow Down by Haemin Sunim. And this is our Valentine's Day love edition of this book. And it's interesting because obviously this guy is a Buddhist monk, and I had mentioned in the other video that he actually dispenses a surprising amount of worldly advice for someone who is a monk. And that's partially because monks in Korea especially are just like part of their duties is to like give advice. So people seek them out for advice on a whole range of things. So he was saying, I actually watched a YouTube video of him. He's adorable and super charming. But he was saying that when he was a young monk, he was approached by a lot of older people. And at the time he was so young and inexperienced that he could not personally dispense specific advice, but he could listen, and that ended up being, you know, pretty much the most important skill of all. So in this book, his worldliness is extended to relationships and love. Like, surprisingly enough, he shares a really sweet story about Khalil Gibran and his love, his unrequited love, sort of, Mary Haskell. And then he himself had a similar relationship with I believe it's a missionary student when he was very young. So he does understand like the pull and the yearning of romantic love, as well as the relationships with other people. So as I said before, this video is about relationships and love. This book has a number of different chapters. Some of them are just like simply titled Life, Rest, so on and so forth. And then chapter 4 is about relationships, and chapter 5 is titled Love. So in each of the chapters starts with a little kind of intro. So this is relationships, and then it launches into sort of like a chapter paragraph read, and then the rest of this book is in these little kind of haiku-like couplets or little paragraphs. So in this part, in the introduction, he says that people invest in houses, they invest in cars, but that, you know, all kind of monetary fulfillment is fleeting and can also not directly lead to happiness if you don't maintain good relationships with the people around you. So his premise is that you should invest in the relationships you have, and that most importantly, that we act in the way that we want to see others act. So as with that kind of like phrase we've all heard, be the change you wish to see, he kind of goes through specific ways in which to do that. So I really love this quote. He says on page 117, there is a saying in early Buddhist scripture, paper wrapped around incense smells of incense, and string binding fish smells of fish. Whether we like it or not, we naturally become influenced by our surroundings. Ask yourself, who do I want to emulate? Is that person physically or mentally nearby? So I think that like we've all kind of heard this kind of crop up more recently, where they say like you're the sum of the 10 people that you spend the most time with, and it's absolutely true. The people that you surround yourself with, like if you want to be an entrepreneur, you should be around other entrepreneurs. If you want to be a great basketball player, guess what? You should be around the people that share the common goals and are, you know, a step above you, so that you can bring yourself to that level. Meanwhile, in the same time, acting in a way that elevates those around you. So he says not to be too haughty or too arrogant. That's not good. He asks us to forgive people. And I think this is really important, because as much as we, you know, get a lot of advice about people that we love, and there's a lot of like relationship columns and so on and so forth out there, we get less advice about what we should do with someone we hate. Now he says, when we hate someone, we think about him a lot. Unable to let him go, we gradually begin to think and act like him. Don't let him become a long-term tenant of the heart. Evict him right away with a notice of forgiveness. Does the person you hate deserve to be carried around in your heart? Keep in your heart only those who love you. If you carry around with you people you hate, it only causes angst and depression. So obviously this is something that we can see kind of on like both sides of the aisle when you look at the political space right now, that people spend so much time in hatred of the other side that it kind of clouds their judgment to anything else. So again, if you hate someone, don't let them live in your heart. It's human nature. There's probably times where I get really disgusted with people, but the point is to not become that person by thinking about that person, because as he says, paper wrapped in incense smells like incense. The string wrapped around the fish smells like fish. So you want to be that incense, and you want to be around that incense. You want to avoid the fish in this metaphor. So he says, when a wise person wants something from others, she first does what she desires for them, exemplifying rather than asking for it. If you want a friend to remember your birthday, remember hers first. If you want your husband to give you a massage, give him a massage first. If you want your children to watch less TV, turn off your TV first. Don't just wait for what you want to have happen. Act first. And that's page 129. And again, that kind of goes to the heart of his advice. And also, the subtitle of this book is How to Be Calm in a Busy World. And it's like, if you exude calmness, guess what? Other people around you will exude calmness. And it really helps for you to maintain that state. So I love that. And then the other thing that he says, which I don't really like this one so much, but he says, if you immediately notice a flaw in someone you meet, it's probably a flaw of yours too. If you didn't have it, you wouldn't have noticed it so quickly. So that's page 131. When you keep clashing with someone, it may be the world's way of asking you to look closely at yourself. So I'll carry that with me the next time I meet somebody that sets me off in such a way, then I will know what to say to myself. Okay? And then I think that kind of concludes the relationship section, or does it go on to love? Yes. So, page 137, for spiritual practitioners, relationships are the final test. Even if you have awakened to your lightened nature, there is still further to go in your spiritual journey if you're not living harmoniously with others. So I like that too. Okay, so then it does go on. It goes on to love. And again, the introductory chapter where it's more prose, he talks about Khalil Gibran and his own infatuation with somebody before he goes on to dispense advice about love. So I didn't take so much from the love section as I did from the relationship section. Again, like, we do hear a lot of advice to treat the ones we loved. I kind of like this quote on page 166 because it kind of deals with people, like, a lot of people have negative connotations with Valentine's Day or Mother's Day because they might have relationships that are fraught with toxicity. And for you, in order for you not to be this person in someone else's life, I do really like this quote. It says, we like to get involved in other people's business, thinking we are doing so for them. We offer unsolicited help and interfere with their lives. We take away their power and make them feel incapable. This stems from our desire for control and recognition. It has little to do with love. So this is kind of like in the vein of, you know, if you hear some drama going down with someone you know, you immediately want to check on them, not because you're checking on them, but because you want to know. Or if you have some great advice for somebody who has not been listening, maybe you have someone in your family that you don't feel like has their life together, or you have somebody in your friend group, whatever it is, but that when you're offering advice, you're truly just passing judgment on them, and that is neither helpful to you or them. So don't be that person. Treat everyone, it's the golden rule, treat them how you want to be treated. I promote calmness, and I hope that you spend Valentine's Day with people you love. Thank you.